Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. I wanted to say a few words on the passing of Nichelle Nichols, who played famously Uhura in the original Star Trek series back in the 60s. She finally passed away over the weekend. She lived to a ripe old age and had a good little string of her own accomplishments in her day and was a lovely woman in her time. And I wish her Godspeed and hope that she finds what peace she can from whatever troubles were still ailing her in her latter days of her life. My mom was an original Trekkie in the 60s. She was a teenager when Star Trek first premiered. Had this big old scrapbook full of newspaper clippings and a couple autograph pictures and stuff, that she had for years. Unfortunately is lost along with a lot of other things from all those days. Very much is the reason why I'm into Star Trek, is because of her. I got plopped down in front of a TV at a very young age, each and every time there's a Star Trek rerun on television. In many ways, it's why I kind of jokingly say Star Trek was kind of like my version of Bible stories for some kids. And, might have been in that last sliver of people who got to experience childhood watching the original series reruns before The Next Generation came out, which was probably around the time I was 9 or 10 when that show finally came out. But I was already a Star Trek fan. A lot of my earliest movie experiences of going to the theaters and stuff was to go see Star Trek movies. And that's in part why I'm deeply saddened by the lackluster lack of quality that we find in the Kurtzman, J.J. Abrams era of Star Trek that we've been living in for now well over a decade. But Nichelle Nichols was, in her own way, just as important as people like Harry Belafonte or Sidney Poitier when it comes to, the civil rights movement back in the time. And is what I would say is a gold standard of what the idea of representation is supposed to actually mean. She wasn't in the audience's face. She wasn't constantly berating Kirk or upstaging people. She was a consummate professional in how she played that role and was just always there doing her thing, never being ineffective and not being preachy and just shitting on everyone around her. There's a way to introduce concepts and new ideas and different kinds of people to audiences that will get the audience to warm to them. And really, most of my complaints in the last several years about the whole DEI trends that are going on in, television, movies, and, just corporate America in general is less to do with the concept of what they're trying to accomplish and just more how they're going about executing things. By contrast, Michael Burnham, hyper-emotional, know-it-all who isn't actually all that great of a know-it-all because she just jumps into things rashly and is constantly trying to steal the scene. I'm not really sure if that's great representation, but Uhura was the real deal. And there's a ton of women in NASA who are there pretty much entirely because of them being raised up and seeing Uhura and being inspired by Uhura. Nichelle Nichols has had an impact on our culture one way or another. And as with most other Star Trek alumni from the original series, it's sad to see them go. I think that leaves us down to just Kirk, Chekhov, and Sulu. Yeah, I think those are the last 3 surviving members of the original cast. If I'm wrong, someone correct me, but I can't think anyone else except maybe Yeoman Brand or Rand, Jesus Christ, Yeoman Rand or something. But, she had her place in history, and it shouldn't be overly diminished. I guess, as inheritors of the role, Zoe Saldana didn't do too terrible, and I don't think that version strayed too far away from, how Uhura really originally was, albeit I don't understand this fascination with having her hook up with Spock. But I haven't been terribly pleased with the newest version of Uhura from Star Trek Strange New Worlds, but, I haven't been pleased with anything really CBS has been doing at all. So is that much of a surprise? Probably not. I just wish the studios could realize that there's a way they could have their cake and eat it too when it comes to trying to promote these sorts of things. A large part, you don't be shitty to your audience. You don't get defensive. A lot of a lot of this stuff about instantly like, oh well, y'all are just dementia bigots. Well, that's them being defensive in a way. It's not as antagonistic as it may seem at times, although over the years since this all began, say circa 2015, 2016, it certainly has become more overtly antagonistic in tone, or they're just really quick to just go ahead and jump on that. It's like they're prepared for that line, like some of the controversies that came out of the Obi-Wan television series recently, and some of its characters. Uhura was the gold standard, though. And Nichelle Nichols is a good chunk of that. Also, to be quite frank, if you want, especially your male audience, to be accepting of different people, putting one on the screen that is quite easy on the eyes is not the worst idea. And as I said, she was a lovely woman back in her day. Possibly my favorite Uhura bits from the years was, some of the seductress, sexy stuff that she was doing in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. I know people hate that movie. It's the most, of all the Star Trek original cast movies, Star Trek V was the most like an actual episode of the original series, but that's another story. And there was the original series episode where her mind had been wiped and they were having to like re-educate her back to, remember who she was and relearn how to talk and all that kind of stuff. Those are a couple of my favorite Uhura moments. Therefore, also Nichelle Nichols moments. So, Godspeed. I hope more people can find inspiration, from her and her works in the years to come. And the people who are in charge of trying to continue this project of trying to normalize, various groups to the public at large, take some lessons on how she went about doing that, because she did it in a way that didn't manage to offend half the audience in the process. Like I said, she was just playing just a consummate professional who was just there and wasn't trying to steal the show. So anyway, I guess that's about it. Tell me something horrible I said in the comments below, and smash buttons and all that kind of shit. Hell, unsubscribe. I did say something vaguely positive about diversity and inclusion and equity. So, that's at least 80% of my audience is probably hovering right over that unsubscribe button right now as I speak. So, go ahead. Or not. Do what you want. And may the force be with you. Happy Star Trek.